They told me to get out of the seat before I even had time to buckle my belt. Not asked, not questioned. Told. Sir, you need to move. This section isn't for people like you, yeah. First sentence out of her mouth. My daughter froze beside me, fingers digging into my sleeve, and in that moment I knew this wasn't a mix-up. It was one of those moments you feel in your bones, the kind you never forget, the kind that either breaks you or forces you to decide who you really are. Let me back up a second. My name's different now. My life looks different now, but I remember exactly how that day started. It was supposed to be simple. Just a flight. Just time with my kid. I'd promised her this trip for over a year, just the two of us. No meetings, no phones buzzing every 5 minutes, no pressure. I showed up, dressed how I always do when I want to breathe a little. Hoodie jeans, sneakers. Comfortable. Human. She had her backpack on her lap, sketchbook sticking out already, drawing clouds like she always does when she's excited, but trying to play it cool. We boarded early, found our seats near the front, slid in quietly. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt for about 10 seconds. Then the footsteps stopped beside us. A woman standing there too long, staring too hard. She didn't smile, didn't say hello, just looked at me like I'd walked into the wrong house. Boarding pass, she said flat. I handed it over. She stared at it, then at me, then at my daughter. Her mouth tightened. This doesn't seem right. That's when the tone shifted. Another crew member showed up taller, louder, wearing confidence like armor. He laughed under his breath and said, "You don't really look like a premium passenger." That laugh. I've heard that laugh my whole life. The one that pretends it's light but lands heavy. I told him calmly, "You can scan the ticket." He didn't. Instead, he leaned closer and said, "We've had issues with people trying to sneak up here." My daughter whispered, "Dad." I felt her shoulder tense. I told her softly, "It's okay. Just give me a second." But it wasn't okay. They started whispering to each other, pointing, glancing back at us like we were a problem they needed to remove before it got inconvenient. Then came the line that still makes my jaw tighten when I think about it. "We're going to need you to move to the back until we sort this out. Don't make a scene. Don't make a scene." Funny how the scene already existed and somehow it was my fault. I looked around. A couple a row over was being handed drinks, smiles all around. No one questioned their presence. No one asked them to prove anything. My daughter leaned closer. Why are they doing this? I told her the truth, the same truth my father told me years ago. Sometimes people decide who you are before you open your mouth. Security showed up next. Heavy stance. Hand near the radio. "We've had complaints," he said like that explained anything. "Do you have ID, not the ticket?" "ID?" I handed everything over. He barely glanced. "If you don't cooperate, we'll have to escort you off." Escort. That word does something to you. It shrinks the space, makes everyone watch. And they were watching now. I could feel it. I saw phones tilt upward, subtle at first, then obvious. Someone behind us whispered, "This is messed up." Another voice said, "Is he even doing anything?" A young attendant near the aisle looked nervous, kept glancing between us and the crew. She muttered almost to herself, "The ticket looks fine." One of the others snapped at her to stay in her lane. I leaned toward my daughter and said something I never wanted to say out loud. "This isn't about us, it's about how they see us." Her eyes got glassy. "But you didn't do anything." I smiled even though it hurt. "I know. That's why we stay calm." They pushed harder. Louder. Accusations started floating around, words like non-compliant delay risk. I saw one of them writing something down fast, deliberate. My daughter whispered, "He's lying." I nodded. I'd already pulled my phone out. Recording. Always record. Not because you want to go viral, but because sometimes truth needs backup. That's when the cabin changed. Someone stood up. "Leave him alone," a man said, voice steady. A woman across the aisle said, "I've been recording this whole time." The tension flipped. The crew felt it. The authority they were leaning on started slipping. They tried to regain control by raising their voices, by threatening to call the captain, by labeling me disruptive, even though I hadn't raised my voice once. I remembered another moment from years ago standing in a lobby being told I should use the side entrance. I remembered the heat in my chest, the promise I made to myself that day that I'd never shrink again just to make someone else comfortable. I looked down at my daughter still holding my sleeve and realized this moment wasn't just about me. It was a lesson happening in real time. One of the crew members grabbed the intercom and announced there was a disruptive passenger in the front. A lie broadcast to everyone. That was the spark. Voices erupted. "That's not true. He hasn't done anything." People stood up, not shouting, just standing, forming a wall. Someone said, "If you touch him, we all testify." The security officer hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. The young attendant stepped forward, voice shaking but clear. "I recorded what you said about his appearance." The crew snapped back that recording was illegal. She looked them dead in the eye and said, "So is discrimination." Someone yelled that the videos were already online, views climbing. The power shifted right there. I stood up slowly, not angry, not loud, just steady. "You embarrassed my daughter," I said. "You lied. You falsified records." The cabin went quiet. You could hear breathing. I took one more breath and said the sentence they never saw coming. "You think I'm just another passenger? I'm not. I own this company." The silence after that felt unreal. Faces drained of color. Phones shook. My daughter looked up at me like she was seeing a new version of her dad, not because of power, but because I hadn't flinched. I named them one by one. I said they were relieved of duty, effective immediately. I didn't yell, I didn't insult them, I just stated facts. People clapped. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was right. The young attendant asked quietly, "What happens now?" I told her. "Now we fix what let this happen." After we landed, that's exactly what we did. Investigations, policy changes, training rebuilt from the ground up. She was promoted, complaints reopened, quiet rules exposed. But here's the part that stays with me. Later that night, my daughter sent me a message. "You showed me what standing up looks like. You didn't fight. You didn't run. You just stayed." That's when I realized I almost moved seats that day. Almost chose peace over truth. If I had, she would have learned a very different lesson. So let me ask you something. What would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet to keep things easy or stood your ground knowing it might get uncomfortable? Drop it in the comments. Argue with me if you want. Share your story if you've got one, because these moments aren't rare and they're not small. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't shout. It's refuse to move when you know you belong.